The hall was silent. Too silent, like the air itself was waiting to see what the human would do. Stone pillars rose high above him, glowing with strange alien symbols. At the far end sat the alien council, their faces stern, their eyes cold. Before him stood two alien sisters. Their silver skin shimmered under the pale light, their dark eyes wide with fear. The order was simple, or so they said. He must choose. Choose one of the sisters to stand by him, to help repopulate what was left of their dying race. One must be chosen and one must be left behind. But the human felt the weight of something far greater. He had fought battles, seen soldiers fall, but nothing had ever pressed against his chest like this moment. The two sisters looked at him not with anger, not even with hate, but with silent pleading. Their bond was visible even without words. One reached for the other's hand, and the human noticed how tightly their fingers locked together. A council member rose. His voice echoed through the chamber, sharp like a blade. Human, your race wishes to live among us, to share survival after the war. This is the price. Choose one of the sisters. Do not delay. It is the law. The human clenched his fists. His mind screamed at him to answer, to end the silence. But inside, his heart refused. How could he look at one and give her hope, while giving the other despair? How could he split something that was never meant to be broken? The older sister, tall and proud, stepped forward. Her voice trembled, though she tried to hide it. If you must, choose me. I can endure. I can give what your people ask. The younger sister shook her head fiercely, tears in her eyes. No, do not say that. He should not have to choose. We came here together. We should not be torn apart. The council hissed in disapproval. To them this was a test, a measure of human obedience. Already he could feel their judgment burning into him. Humans were known to be selfish, impulsive, weak in the eyes of the galaxy. They expected him to follow their command, to prove that he would bend, but deep inside the human felt something shift. It was not weakness. It was not fear. It was the same feeling that had kept him alive in war, the same instinct that had made him fight even when surrender was easier. It was defiance. He looked at the sisters again. They were not enemies. They were not prizes. They were people bound together by love stronger than any law. And for the first time since stepping into the hall, the human spoke. I cannot choose. The words were soft, but they struck the chamber like thunder. Murmurs rippled through the council. Faces twisted in anger. Guards shifted uneasily, their hands on their weapons. One of the elders leaned forward, his voice rising. You dare refuse? You were given one task. Choose, or we shall decide for you. The human's jaw tightened. His voice grew firmer. No. If survival means tearing them apart, then it is no survival worth having. You ask me to begin a future with cruelty. I will not. The sisters gasped, their eyes wide, but hope flickered in their faces. The older one whispered, He would risk everything for us. The council erupted in shouts. Some demanded his removal, others called for punishment. To them, he was breaking sacred law. To him, he was protecting what truly mattered. Guards stepped forward, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The sisters clung to each other, trembling, but the human did not step back. His heart pounded, his breath heavy, but his eyes never left the council. Take him away, the elder ordered. If he will not obey, then let him learn what defiance costs. The guards moved in. The sisters cried out, reaching for him, but he lifted his hands slowly. He was not afraid, not now. The test had been revealed. It was never about survival. It was about control, and he had chosen to defy it. As the guards grabbed his arms and dragged him toward the dark doors, he caught one last glimpse of the sisters. Their hands were still locked together, their eyes still fixed on him. He saw trust there, raw and unshaken, and in that moment he knew. This was only the beginning because he had not chosen one. He had chosen both. The heavy doors slammed shut, echoing through the stone hall like thunder. The human was gone, dragged into the shadows by the guards, but the two sisters remained standing at the center of the chamber. Their hands still clasped together, their hearts still racing. The council muttered among themselves, their voices sharp and cold. To them, the human was a fool. To them, his refusal was weakness, not strength. Yet as the sisters stood there, something new stirred inside them. For the first time in their lives, they had seen someone, an outsider, a stranger, stand against the council not for himself, but for them. The younger sister, Lyra, turned to her sibling. Her voice was soft, trembling. Did you see his eyes, Sira? He was not afraid. not even when they dragged him away. The older one, Sira, nodded, though her jaw tightened. She was stronger, always the one who carried the burden, but now even she felt the sting of tears at the corner of her eyes. Yes, I saw. No one has ever done that before. No one has ever chosen us both. They were quiet for a moment. Around them, the council members continued to speak of punishment, of how the human would be broken and taught to obey. But the sisters were no longer listening. Their hearts were far from the hall, far from the cold laws. Their thoughts were with him. Sira squeezed Lyra's hand. They will hurt him for what he did. Lyra shook her head quickly, refusing the thought. He will endure. He is human. There is something inside him, something different. I felt it, didn't you? Sira looked at her sister carefully. She had always believed humans were reckless creatures, too wild, too fragile. But this one, he was different. He had faced the council without flinching. He had spoken as if their laws meant nothing, as if kindness mattered more than survival. And she realized her sister was right. She had felt it too. The guards returned, their armor glowing faintly in the pale light. One of them barked an order. The council is done with you. You will return to your quarters. Do not speak of this again. The sisters obeyed, but their minds were far away. As they walked the long, winding corridors of the alien citadel, their voices grew quiet, their words spoken only for each other. They want us apart, Lyra whispered. They always wanted us apart. That is why they made this test. Sira nodded grimly. Yes, they wanted to break us, but the human would not let them. The words filled them with strange warmth, even in the cold corridors. For years they had only known fear. Fear of the council, fear of being separated, fear of losing the last family they had. But now something had changed. For the first time, someone had stood with them. When they reached their quarters, the guards sealed the door behind them. The room was small, carved from stone, with little more than 2 narrow beds and a single window that looked out at the night sky. The sisters sat together side by side, staring at the stars. Lyra broke the silence first. Do you think he meant it? Do you think he truly chose both of us? Sira's lips curved in a faint, almost bitter smile. He risked everything. The council could have killed him on the spot, and yet he still said it. If that is not meaning, then what is? Lyra's eyes shone. She rested her head on her sister's shoulder. Then maybe there is hope. Maybe he is not like the others. They sat like that for a long time, the bond between them stronger than any law, stronger than any fear. And in the quiet of that room they made a silent promise to themselves. They would not let the council break him. Meanwhile, deep beneath the citadel, the human sat in darkness. Chains bound his wrists, cold stone pressed against his back. Yet his spirit was not broken. He remembered their faces, the way they had clung to each other, the way they had looked at him with trust in their eyes. That memory was enough to keep him steady. In the chamber above, the council argued late into the night. Some called for his death, others for harsher punishment. But a few, just a few, whispered doubt. They had seen how he stood, how he spoke. They had seen the sisters' eyes. And in that whisper of doubt, something dangerous began to grow. Back in their quarters, Lyra finally drifted into restless sleep, but Sira remained awake. She watched the stars through the window, her mind racing. She thought of the human's defiance, of the way he had spoken to the council as if they held no power over him. And for the first time in her life, Sira felt something she had never dared to feel before, not fear, but hope. The cell was dark, but the human's resolve burned brighter than ever. Chains bit into his wrists, cold stone pressed against his back, yet he did not lower his head. He remembered the sisters' faces, the way their hands had stayed locked together even as the council shouted. That image gave him strength. Above, the alien citadel pulsed with light. The council chamber had gathered again, and the atmosphere was heavy. The elders sat in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on each other. The human's refusal had shaken something deep within their order, and though they did not admit it aloud, unease spread like cracks in stone. One elder finally spoke. His voice was sharp, dripping with anger. This human defies our law. He rejects our test. He dares to mock our survival. Another elder leaned forward. His voice was calmer but heavy with warning. And yet, he did not speak as a fool. He spoke with fire. His words struck even our own hearts. Some of our people whisper already. They question if perhaps. He is right. The chamber erupted in debate. Some demanded his execution at once. Others whispered caution. But one truth was clear. The human's act of defiance could not be ignored. While the council argued, the sisters waited in their quarters, restless. They paced the small stone floor, their hands never parting. "They will hurt him," Lyra whispered, fear shaking her voice. "They will try to break him," Sira shook her head. "They do not understand him. He is not like us. He is not like them. He will not break." Her words were confident, but inside her chest her heart pounded with doubt. Yet when she closed her eyes, she remembered his voice echoing in the hall. If survival means tearing them apart, then it is no survival worth having. That memory was her shield. The door to their quarters burst open. Guards marched in, their weapons glowing. One of them barked an order. "The council has decided. You will both come. The human is to face judgment, and you will witness." The sisters exchanged a glance. Fear and hope tangled together, then followed the guards through the long corridors. They were led into the central square of the citadel, where hundreds of aliens had gathered. Torches lit the night. Shadows danced across stone walls, and at the center stood a raised platform. The human was dragged onto it, his chains clattering as the guards forced him to kneel. The crowd hissed. Some shouted curses, others demanded his death. The air trembled with anger. But when the human lifted his head, his eyes were steady, his jaw firm. He looked not at the council, not at the guards, but at the sisters. And when he saw them, his lips curved into the faintest smile. That small smile cut through the noise of the crowd like a blade. The elder stepped forward, raising his staff. His voice boomed across the square. "This human defies our ancient law. He dares to choose both when only one may be chosen. For this arrogance he shall be punished. Let all who watch remember, no outsider may break our order." The crowd roared in approval, yet within their ranks unease stirred. A few faces looked uncertain, their eyes darting between the human and the sisters. The elder turned to him. "Human, speak your last words before judgment." The human's voice rang out steady and unshaken. "You think this is about law. You think this is about control. But it is not. It is about life. It is about love. You claim you want survival, yet you demand I begin by breaking a bond that should never be broken. If this is your survival, then it is a lie." The crowd fell silent. His words echoed through the night. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even the sisters stared, their chests rising with sudden hope. The elder snarled. "You dare call us liars? You dare spit upon our law?" The human met his gaze unflinching. "Yes, because law without compassion is nothing but chains. And I will not wear your chains." The square trembled with noise again, half rage, half confusion. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons, ready to strike him down. But then something unexpected happened. From the edge of the crowd, a young alien voice shouted, "He is right." The council froze. All eyes turned toward the speaker, a young warrior, his armor scratched from battles long past. His face burned with defiance. "We have followed these laws for generations, and still our numbers fall. Perhaps it is not strength that we need, but kindness." Murmurs spread quickly. Others began to whisper, their voices carrying through the crowd. Doubt like fire spread from one alien to another. The elder slammed his staff against the stone. "Silence. This human corrupts you. He will be made an example." But the sisters rushed forward before the guards could stop them. They fell to their knees beside the human, clutching his arms, their voices trembling but fierce. "If he dies," Sira shouted, "then we die with him. And if you tear us apart," Lyra cried, "then you destroy what little is left of us." The square erupted again, but now the noise was different. It was not only rage, it was division. Some shouted for death, others for mercy. The order of the council, once unquestioned, was now cracked wide open. The human stood slowly, shaking off his chains as if they were nothing. His voice carried above the chaos. "You asked me to choose. And I did. I chose both. Because life is not about tearing bonds apart. It is about building them. If you kill me, then know this truth will live longer than I ever could." The sisters clung to him, their eyes shining with pride and fear. And for the first time in generations, the council no longer held full control. The square was still echoing with shouts when the elder raised his staff once more. His face was dark with fury, his voice trembling like thunder. "Enough! This chaos ends now. If the human and these sisters will not bow to law, then let them learn what law truly means. Lock them away together. No food, no water. Let them see how long their defiance lasts. The crowd gasped. Some cheered. Others fell into silence, their unease growing stronger. But the guards obeyed without hesitation. They seized the human and the sisters, dragging them toward the iron gates that led beneath the citadel. Chains rattled, doors slammed, and soon the world of light and fire above was gone. The three of them were thrown into a stone chamber deep underground. The door slammed shut, sealing them in. The only light came from a faint crack high in the wall, spilling a weak silver glow across the floor. The sisters huddled together, their hands still clasped. The human sat across from them, his back against the cold wall, his breathing steady. Lyra's voice shook. "They mean to starve us, Sira. They mean to let us waste away." Sira pulled her close, though her own fear was heavy. "Then we will endure as long as we can." But the human spoke calmly, his eyes steady. "Endure, yes. But we will do more than that. They think this chamber is a cage. To me it is a test, and I have never failed a test." The sisters looked at him in confusion. What strength could he have now? They had no food, no water, no tools. Only stone walls and silence. The human leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "On Earth I learned to survive with less than this. I learned to make fire from stones, to draw water from air, to keep hope alive when hope was gone. They locked us here to break us. Instead, we will use this to grow stronger." His confidence sparked something in them. Even in the darkness, his presence was like a flame. Hours passed. The chamber was cold, hunger already gnawing at their bellies. Lyra shivered, curling close to her sister. But the human began to work. He searched the walls, running his hands along the cracks, listening for hollow spaces. His fingers were raw by the time he found one. He struck 2 stones together again and again until a faint spark appeared. Soon a tiny flame flickered in the shadows, casting warm light across their faces. The sisters gasped softly. Fire was forbidden within the citadel. They had only seen it in battle, never in their own hands. Yet here was the human, coaxing it to life as if it were nothing. "This is warmth," he whispered, feeding the flame with scraps of cloth torn from his own shirt. "This is life. While this fire burns, we are not broken." The sisters sat close, their eyes wide with wonder. The fire's glow painted their silver skin with gold. And for the first time since entering the chamber, they felt safe. Through the crack in the wall, moisture dripped slowly, gathering into a small pool on the floor. The human guided them to it, showing them how to cup their hands and drink. The water was faint and bitter, but it was enough, you see, he said softly. "Where there is darkness, there is also light. Where there is despair, there is also life. You only have to look for it." The sisters watched him in silence. Every movement, every word seemed impossible, yet it filled them with warmth. Lyra whispered to her sister, "He gives us fire. He gives us water. He even gives us hope." "What kind of man is he?" Sira's voice was hushed. "He is not like any we have known." Days passed in the chamber. Hunger still gnawed, but the human kept their spirits alive with stories of Earth. Stories of forests that stretched beyond sight, of oceans that roared like thunder, of skies full of endless stars. The sisters listened, their eyes wide, their hearts carried far from the stone walls. And slowly, something began to change. The guards who brought no food, no water, still watched through hidden slits in the wall. They expected screams, weakness, despair, but instead they saw firelight, heard laughter, and even caught echoes of human songs. Confusion spread among them. "How can he laugh in hunger?" One whispered. "How can they still smile?" Another asked. Rumors began to travel upward, reaching even the council chamber. The human was not broken. The sisters were not weak. Instead, they were alive, more alive than before. The elder's fury grew. "It is a trick. He cannot last. No human can endure without breaking." But in the shadows of the chamber, the truth was clear. The human was teaching them something even the council had forgotten. Survival was not only about food and law. It was about spirit. It was about refusing to let the darkness win. On the 6th night, as the sisters sat beside the small fire, Sira turned to the human. Her voice was quiet but filled with wonder. "You risked everything for us. You could have chosen one and you would be free. Why did you not?" The human looked at her, his eyes steady in the firelight. "Because to choose one and leave the other would not be freedom. It would be slavery to cruelty. I would rather starve with both of you than live with only half a soul." The sisters said nothing, but their eyes shone with tears. They leaned close to him, resting their heads against his shoulders. And for the first time, they felt not like prisoners, but like family. The firelight danced against the stone walls, its glow soft and fragile. But in that fragile glow, the three of them felt something strong. The chamber that had once seemed like a tomb now felt alive. Hunger still pressed against their ribs and thirst still ached in their throats, but their spirits were not broken. The sisters leaned close to the human, their heads resting against his shoulders. For the first time in their lives, they felt a warmth that came not from fire alone, but from trust. He had chosen them both, not with words only, but with actions, risking his life, defying the council, and sharing every drop of strength he had. Lyra broke the silence. Her voice was soft, uncertain, but hopeful. You could have left us. You could have chosen one, and the council would have spared you. Why stay with us in this dark place? The human turned his head toward her. His eyes were tired but steady. Because I meant what I said. To leave one of you behind would have been cruelty, and cruelty has no place in survival. Sira watched him carefully, her sharp eyes searching for weakness, for lies. But all she saw was honesty. All she saw was a man who refused to bend, even when bending would have saved his life. She spoke softly. On our world, strength is measured by obedience. The council teaches us that to follow law without question is the only way. But you measure strength in a different way. The human nodded. On Earth, we survived because we stood together. When storms came, when wars burned, when hunger tried to kill us, our families held each other. That is why I will never separate you two. Together you are stronger. Together you are life. The words sank deep into their hearts. Lyra felt tears sting her eyes, but she did not hide them. She whispered, No one has ever spoken of us that way before. The human smiled faintly. Then let me be the first. Hours turned into days. Hunger grew sharper, but so did their bond. The sisters began to copy the human's small survival tricks. They learned to catch water from the dripping cracks, to keep the fire alive with scraps of cloth. They laughed at his strange earth songs, repeating the words even though they did not fully understand them. At night, when sleep was hard, he told them stories of his world. Of forests filled with whispering leaves, of great rivers that roared like beasts, of skies where stars burned so bright they looked close enough to touch. The sisters listened with wide eyes, carried far from the stone chamber by his words. Your world sounds like a dream, Lyra murmured one night. The human shook his head gently. No, it is real. And one day, if we survive this, I will show you. The sisters exchanged a glance, their hearts beating faster. Hope, something forbidden for so long, began to grow inside them. But above the chamber, the council grew restless. The guards reported that the human had not broken, that the sisters were not weak. Instead of despair, there was laughter. Instead of silence, there was song. The elders could not understand it. It is dangerous, one hissed. He infects them with his madness. If others hear of this, our law will crumble. But whispers were already spreading. Some guards, shaken by what they saw, began to wonder. Some council servants began to murmur behind closed doors. The human's defiance was no longer just his, it was becoming a spark. Back in the chamber, Sira sat awake while the others slept. She watched the human's steady breathing, the faint rise and fall of his chest. For years she had taught herself to trust no one, to obey only the council. Yet here, in this place of punishment, she felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, but safety. Lyra stirred beside her, whispering in half-sleep. He will keep us safe, won't he? Sira glanced at the human, then at her sister. She lowered her voice. Yes, he will. The words surprised even her. She had never spoken them aloud before, never admitted such belief. But now it was true. The next morning, the guards came. They opened the heavy door and threw in scraps of spoiled food, barely edible, bitter and foul. It was not kindness, only a cruel trick, meant to tempt them and remind them of their place. But the human divided it carefully. He gave the sisters the larger pieces, keeping only the smallest scrap for himself. Sira frowned. You need strength too, he shook his head. My strength comes from knowing you are alive. Eat. The sisters obeyed, their throats tight with emotion. Every act he made, every word he spoke built their trust deeper. That night, as the fire flickered low, Sira whispered what had been growing in her heart. You risked your life for us. You suffer with us. You give us hope when we had none, human. You are not just defying the council. You are changing us. The human looked at her quietly, then at Lyra, who nodded in agreement. His voice was calm but firm. Then let this change grow, because trust, once born, cannot be chained. And in that moment, the chamber no longer felt like a prison. It felt like the beginning of something new. The fire had burned low, nothing more than faint orange embers when the heavy sound of boots echoed in the corridor outside. The sisters jolted awake, fear gripping their hearts. The human sat up quickly, his eyes sharp and alert. The iron door swung open and torchlight spilled into the chamber. Guards in dark armor marched in, their weapons glowing with pale energy. Their leader spoke coldly. The council has decided. The sisters are to be separated. The human will be chained in silence. If he resists again, he will be executed. Lyra clung to her sister instantly, her hands trembling. No, please, not again! Sira's face hardened, but her eyes darted to the human. His jaw was tight, his muscles tense. He rose to his feet even though chains still bound his wrists. His voice carried across the chamber like steel. You will not take them. The guards laughed, cruel and sharp. One of them sneered, You are only a man. What can you do against us? The human did not answer with words, he moved. With the speed of someone who had fought too many battles to count. He swung his chains like weapons. The heavy iron link struck one guard in the chest, knocking him back. Another lunged forward, but the human ducked low, his shoulders slamming into the guard's legs, sending him crashing to the floor. The sisters cried out, their fear twisting into shock. They had never seen such raw strength, such refusal to bow. But there were too many. The guards closed in, weapons raised. The human fought like fire against water, every movement desperate but fierce. He would not let them take the sisters, not while he still had breath. Then something unexpected happened. From the shadows of the corridor, another figure appeared, a guard but not like the others. His armor was dented, his movements hesitant. He shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. Enough! Leave them! The other guards froze, stunned. The man tore off his helmet, revealing tired eyes and scars across his face. He looked at the human, then at the sisters. I have watched you. I have seen how you survive, how you refuse to break. You speak truth. The council is wrong. If survival means cruelty, then it is not survival at all. The leader of the guard snarled. Traitor! You dare, but the rebel guard raised his weapon and fired. Light blazed through the chamber, striking the leader down before he could finish his words. The others hesitated, caught between loyalty and fear. In that pause, the human seized his chance. He smashed his chains against the stone, breaking them loose with one final strike. Now, he shouted. We run! The sisters grabbed his hands, their fear swallowed by sudden courage. Together they darted into the corridor, the rebel guard leading the way. The walls shook with alarms, red light flashing through the halls. Voices shouted commands above them, echoing like thunder. They ran through twisting passages, their feet slamming against stone. The human kept the sisters close, shielding them when guards appeared. More than once he threw himself between them and danger, his fists and chains striking down anyone who dared to stop them. At one corner, they nearly collided with another squad. Blinding light filled the air as weapons fired. The human pushed the sisters behind him, the energy beams searing the walls inches from their heads. He roared, his body slamming into the nearest soldier, ripping the weapon from his grasp. He turned it against them, firing back with brutal precision. The sisters clung to each other, trembling, but their eyes burned with awe. Lyra whispered, He fights like he carries all of us in his hands. Sira nodded, her voice low. He does. At last they reached a hidden gate near the edge of the citadel. The rebel guard pulled a lever, and the heavy doors groaned open. Cold night air rushed in, sharp and clean. Beyond lay the dark wilderness, mountains stretching beneath the stars. The guard looked at the human, his face grim. This is as far as I can take you. They will hunt you. They will call you enemies of the council, but you must go. Do not waste this chance. The human clasped the man's shoulder firmly. You gave us freedom. That will not be wasted. The guard nodded once, then turned back toward the citadel, ready to face the storm he had chosen. The sisters and the human stepped into the night. The ground was rough, the air biting, but to them it felt like freedom. Behind them, alarms still echoed. Ahead, the mountains rose like guardians, their peaks sharp against the sky. The sisters pressed close to the human, their breaths fast and uneven. Lyra whispered, "We are hunted now." "They will not stop." The human looked at them both, his expression fierce but calm. "Let them come. We will not bow. Together, we are stronger than their fear." The sisters felt it then, not only hope but something deeper. Trust so strong it burned brighter than the fire they had once shared in the dark chamber. And as they vanished into the wilderness, pursued by enemies yet unbroken, the first steps of their new journey began. The night air was sharp, carrying the smell of stone and frost. The human, with the two sisters close by his side, climbed the jagged slopes of the mountain. Behind them, faint horns echoed through the valleys, the sound of hunters. The council had unleashed their soldiers. Every step was heavy. The sisters were tired, their bodies aching after days in the chamber and the chaos of the escape. But the human never let them falter. His hands guided them up steep ridges, his arms steady when the rocks threatened to give way. At one point, Lyra stumbled, her knees buckling. She gasped, whispering, "I can't go on." Before she could fall, the human caught her, lifting her onto his shoulders as if she weighed nothing. His voice was steady, calm, unyielding. "Yes, you can. We do not stop now, not while freedom waits beyond the peaks." Sira walked close behind, her eyes fixed on his back. In the flicker of starlight, she saw not only a man but a force of will greater than anything she had known. She whispered softly, so only she could hear, "He carries us as if we are already his family." Hours passed. The cold deepened, and still the human pressed forward. When they finally reached a plateau, they collapsed together beneath an outcrop of stone. The mountains stretched endlessly, the stars burning like fire across the sky. For a moment, silence ruled. The sisters leaned against him, their breaths slow and uneven. He looked out at the stars and finally spoke. "We are free for now, but the council will not stop. They will chase us across valleys, across worlds if they must." Fear flickered in Lyra's eyes, but she shook her head firmly. "Then let them chase. As long as you stand with us, we will not be afraid." Sira added, her voice quiet but fierce, "You could still leave. If you went alone, you might survive. But you stay." The human turned to them both, his gaze steady. "Because leaving you would not be survival. It would be betrayal. And I will never betray you." The words struck deeper than any vow. The sisters felt their fear shift into something else, something stronger. For the first time, they believed their bond could outlast the council's chains. Dawn came slowly, painting the sky in pale light. With it came new danger. From the valley below, the distant gleam of armor caught the sun. The hunters were close. The human rose instantly. "We move." But before they could continue, a sound rose from the cliffs nearby. A low rumble, then a crack. Rocks tumbled down the slope, nearly crushing them. Soldiers appeared at the ridge, their weapons drawn, their voices shouting, "Seize them!" The sisters clung to the human, panic flooding their eyes. But he stood firm. He scanned the cliffs, then the ground beneath them, his soldier's mind racing. Finally, he spotted a narrow fissure in the rock, half hidden by snow. "This way," he shouted. He pulled the sisters with him, diving into the gap just as energy bolts struck the ground where they had stood. The passage was narrow and twisting, the walls pressing close, but it led them deeper into the mountain. The soldiers followed, their shouts echoing behind, but the human's determination did not falter. At last, the passage opened into a vast cavern. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, glowing faintly with alien crystals. Water dripped in steady rhythm, echoing like a heartbeat. The sisters gasped, awe breaking through their fear. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered. The human smiled faintly, though his eyes stayed sharp. "Beauty means nothing unless we survive to see it again." "We keep moving." They pressed on through the cavern, the glow lighting their path. The human guided them over sharp rocks and across shallow pools. But as they neared the far side, he slowed. His ears caught something, the silence had changed. He turned sharply. From the shadows, more soldiers emerged, blocking the way. Their leader sneered, raising his weapon. "The council does not forgive defiance. You will not leave this mountain alive." The sisters froze, their hearts sinking. But the human stepped forward, his body shielding them. His voice rang through the cavern, calm but filled with fire. "You call this justice? To hunt two sisters who only wish to live? To punish kindness because it threatens your control? If this is your law, then it is already dead." The leader's face twisted in anger. "Enough words, die!" Blinding light flared as weapons fired. The cavern shook with explosions, crystals shattering and water spraying like rain. The human fought with raw fury, his body moving faster than the sisters could follow. He struck soldiers with fists with stolen weapons. With nothing but sheer will, the sisters, emboldened by his defiance, picked up shards of crystal, hurling them at the soldiers, their cries echoing through the cavern. Together they fought not as prisoners but as something new, partners in survival. At last the final soldier fell. Silence returned, broken only by the drip of water and the sisters' ragged breaths. The human lowered his weapon slowly, his body trembling with exhaustion. The sisters rushed to him, clinging to his arms, their voices trembling. "You saved us." Again. He looked at them both, his expression soft but firm. "No, we saved each other." They leaned against him, their tears falling freely, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of something new, something stronger than law, stronger than chains. When they finally emerged from the cavern, the sun was rising over the peaks. The light bathed them in gold, painting their faces with warmth. The sisters stood at his side, their hands clasped tightly in his. Behind them, the citadel still hunted. But ahead of them, across the mountains and stars, a new life waited. The human looked at them both, his voice quiet but steady. "This is not the end. This is the beginning. From now on, we build a future where no one has to choose between love and survival." The sisters nodded, their eyes shining with trust. Together they stepped into the light, and so began a new story, not of chains and laws, but of family.